Okay, hey guys, I'm Ty Kevin 83 and I'm coming at you guys today with a reaction and rebuttal to the Pokemon and geometric distributions video from Numberphile where they estimate the total number of encounters that you would need to get in Gen 1 to catch all of the Pokemon. And I'm going to walk through multiple levels of how wrong this video is about the number of encounters you need to get to catch all of the Pokemon. So let's start off and watch the beginning of the video where they set up the initial problem.
Number is that going to be? So, in order to answer this, we have to make some assumptions. So in the game, you walk into the wild grass, which is where the Pokemon are located, and in different areas, different Pokemon live, and the rarer ones will appear less often than the common ones. But we're not going to model that, it's too hard. So we just assume that all Pokemon are equally likely to appear.
Okay, so to start out, this idea of estimating the problem by getting rid of the variance of different slots, where in Pokemon slots 1 through 10 go 20%, 20%, 15%, 10, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, 4, 1 for the 10 different slots. Okay, so knowing that, or maybe it's 5541. Knowing that, you can build out an estimation with that, but the math is way more complicated, and it's not that different in its result from running the same math, assuming they're all 10% per each of the 10 slots. And then they're just doing 3 here as a baseline example.
As with any mathematical model, start simple, learn something, and then later on.
This is a great point to just simplify the problem. Don't worry about too much detail at the beginning, and it would be a fine thing if they weren't completely wrong about Gen 1 in general.
You can try and make it more realistic. So they're all equally likely to appear. And we're also going to assume that once you see a Pokemon, so once it appears for you in one of those encounters, you've caught it. Which again, for anyone who's played the game knows that is not how it works. Some of them run away, you kill some of them by accident.
If you're a speedrunner, we can guarantee we catch them every time, but we'll have to see that in a second.
It's a nightmare. But again, keep it simple. If it appears for you, that's it. We're done. We're ticking it off the list. So, that's the starting model. And let's first focus on 3. We have 3 here. We can do it.
Okay, so we're going to skip ahead now to their conclusions about this section.
Thing. So therefore they have to go to infinity. So all told, we can say the number of encounters of our Pokemon looks like n times the natural log of n.
Now, what's really interesting also I wanted to talk about in reacting to this video is there is a name colloquially for this problem that they never reference in the video. And maybe it's because they don't want people to just look it up and immediately shut off the video, but the name is the coupon collector's problem. So this n log n solution, they essentially, in this video where they're talking about the geometric distributions behind encountering Pokemon, in reality, it's a video proving the coupon collector problem solution for scenarios where you have equal weights of chance of each of the coupons, or in this case, Pokemon.
So when n is 3, this is about 5.5. What we calculated. Pretty good approximation. So when n is 150, how many encounters? We're going to actually expect to have 752. So we saw that when we had 3, it was less than twice. But when we have 150 Pokemon, it's almost 5 times as many encounters.
That's less than I expected.
So 750, that doesn't sound too bad, right? 5 times the number of Pokemon as encounters. Well, in reality, as speedrunners, we know that this is wildly off as an estimate. And there's a couple different reasons why it's wildly off. So I'm just going to start by showing a chart that we call a DSUM chart. This is just a bunch of math behind how the encounter slots work in Gen 1. And you can see, for example, if an 8-bit number is bits 0 to 255 or 256 different numbers, then the first slot being bits 0 to 50 would be 51 out of the 256 different bits would give you the first slot. So it's really close to about 20% of the time you will get the first slot. And then 20% of the time you get the second slot, 15% of the time you get the third slot, 10, 10, 10, 5, 5. And then in this specific scenario, I've modeled the 4% and 1% slots are combined into a single Pokemon, so you can't distinguish the slots, and they end up acting as a single another 5% slot. So the practical upshot of this is that the random number generator, we call it a pseudo-random number generator in Pokemon Gen 1, because all random number generators in effect are pseudo-random. They are not perfectly random in computers. And in fact, the Pokemon Gen 1 random number generator is so bad that it acts cyclically in a very obvious way for the purpose of encounters. And the reason it does that is because in order to get an encounter, it has to first pull the RNG, should I give the person an encounter on this step? And then after pulling the RNG for should you get an encounter, it pulls for the type of the encounter. And because those things are correlated, you then have a problem where what type of encounter you get is correlated to whether or not you got an encounter. And that correlation then causes a cyclic effect where when, for example, if you get a level 4 Nidoran female and you know that the RNG bit that generated that must have been 166 to 190, you know, after you, if you run away from the encounter perfectly, like as quickly as possible, you know that the RNG will reverse by about 55 to 40 bits. It depends a little bit on some other nuances, but we'll just use 55 as a general estimation for any type of encounter. So we'll say goes back to 123, which is in the level 4 rat. And then if it goes back to 123 and you then have to walk 2 steps without getting any encounters, no matter what, you can never get encounters in the first 2 steps after moving. So the RNG would be at least 134, and then it would be at 139 before you can get the encounter again. So the first encounter you could possibly get if you immediately got a step on that 3rd step after running away from the level 4 Nidoran female as quickly as possible would be a level 4 Rattata. And then if instead of getting it on that step, you got it on the 4th step after, we would know you would get a level 4 Nidoran male. Now, in practice, we are estimating the place in the RNG, right? It's not guaranteed to be 178. It could be anywhere between 166 and 190. So with this estimation, you could be slightly off and think you're at 139 when you're as low as 127 or as high as 151. So there's some error bars in this behavior. But I mathed it all out, and I said, okay, let's just assume you can always get a unique encounter using DSUM information for the first, 4 encounters you get. Because for the first one, you know you're going to get a unique encounter, and then as long as you get any other encounter from that first 20%, let's assume you get the 20% slot first. As long as you get any other encounter, that's an 80% chance. And if you get any other encounter, you're done. If you get the same encounter again, then you can use that to desum with this procedure I said, moving around and tracking the bits to know when to walk to search for the Pokemon. Then you could always guarantee getting a second different Pokemon, because even though the error bars are a little bit on each side, like let's say you wanted a level 5 Pidgey, you might get a level 4 Nido female, you might get a level 6 Nido male, but if you get a level 3 rat first, any of those are going to be different. So I think guaranteeing it for the first couple here is basically valid. And then if you did the rest of these, you're going to have, I estimated an about 7 in 10 chance of getting the Pokemon you want for trying to force the remaining slots. And then if you add that all up, I think it would take about 30 encounters to catch every unique slot in a 10 slot table. So if you follow the same simplifications, which I love simplifications. I think they're really valid and important when estimating math problems like this. But if you actually understand how the RNG is wrong, you can build an estimation of probably only really needing about 447 different encounters to catch all of the different slots across 15 different encounter tables in Pokemon. Now, there's more complexity to it. Obviously, you don't end up needing to actually catch every different of the 150 Pokemon because they have evolutions. There's some that you get, the legendaries that are just always in place that you don't need to manipulate them. You don't need to hunt for them in grass. And there's some that you buy from the game corner. There's some you get given, like the starter. So there's all of these other, there's the fossils, right? There's so many different other complexities to this question of how many encounters would it take to catch them all in Gen 1 Pokemon. And I'm referencing Gen 1 a lot because they show a lot of Gen 1 footage in their video from Numberphile. So to get all of the first 150 Pokemon, even if you make the same assumptions they're doing, with more knowledge about how to manipulate the random number generator, you can catch only probably 447 different Pokemon. But then there's more, right? So let's go back and let's watch a video from my friend Abyssoft about the more intricate stuff here of catching Pokemon in Gen 1. So let's start with Abyssoft's recap of this DSUM concept that I just explained. Gives us more information and makes it easier to find all the different Pokemon.
Of DSUM. If we walk into the grass and find a Pokemon, we can use this information as a starting point for what to do next in order to trigger an encounter for a Pokemon that we desire. Looking at this chart, we can figure out...
So, an important reference here is that the chart I was showing and using was a Pokemon Yellow DSUM chart. Red has some nuances that are very different from Yellow, so this Pokemon Red DSUM chart has very different practical numbering and ways of going about doing DSUM searching.
What our next move is if we want to spawn a level 3 male Nidoran, and it's quite simple to understand. The blue numbers indicate how many steps outside of the grass you need to take to increase your chances of encountering the Nidoran, and the red numbers indicate how many steps inside of the grass we should take. Let's look at an example. We've just encountered a level 2 Rattata, and it's our first encounter, so the chart says we should move 4 times inside of the grass to maximize our chances of getting the Nidoran we want. Voila, La Nidoran.
Now, this is an interesting video because they didn't do 2 steps as quickly as possible. So when you watch that closely, you can see they stutter step as they're walking. And I'm going to replay it so we can see that again.
Our first encounter. So the chart says we should move
so
4 times inside of the grass
continuously
to maximize
walking.
our chances of
the,
getting...
the speedrunner is stutter stepping, and that's because in Pokemon Gen 1, it generates 2 encounter checks if you are going from stationary to moving. That itself is an encounter check, and then it will, when you land, also give you an encounter check. So there are advantages to stutter stepping to search for encounters with DSUM. So actually, some of the more advanced runners use time-based charts, not because they're more accurate to when you should be searching, but because you need time to account for like your stutter stepping being a little bit variable in how long each step lasts.
Getting the Nidoran we want. Voila, La Nidoran. DSUM is almost like black magic, but just remember, this doesn't have a 100% success rate. It's only...
And that's why I'm still saying it wouldn't be 150 different encounters. If you're estimating you need to encounter all of them, it would be like 450. But also not 750 because you have more information than just pure randomness.
Only an estimation, since we're not controlling the RNG perfectly. But what if we could? And I think we're...
And what if we could, right? So let's go forward to the Catch 'em All glitchless.
Catch 'em All category. Catch 'em All glitchless requires you to catch all 124 Pokemon on whatever version you're running, which excludes versions...
So basically, speedrunners have already solved doing exactly what Numberphile is suggesting. Catching all the Pokemon as few encounters as possible. And their solution involves forcing every unique encounter and being able to do that because we have perfect information from when we reset the console.
Specifics, trade evolutions, and 2 of the evolutions, since only 1 Eevee is available in the game. Since you're catching all of the Pokemon, the route has changed significantly, and our old pal Nidoking isn't the Pokemon used in the run. Instead, we stick with Squirtle. The reason for this? We need to evolve Squirtle up to Blastoise, and while Nidoking is faster for clearing gyms, the time lost from leveling Squirtle at the end of the run would be much greater. The second thing you may notice is that any percent glitchless was ran on blue version, and Catch-em-all glitchless is ran on red version. So why the change? Blue version has two huge time-saving advantages. The first is that Dratini is 6 levels higher than on red version, which saves about 30 minutes when leveling it up to Dragonair. And the second is that Porygon is 3,500 coins cheaper at the Celadon Game Corner, which is another 30-minute time save. The run is ripe with manips as well, more than we have time to cover in this video, so instead we'll look at what isn't manipped and the most frustrating place to catch Pokemon, the Safari Zone. The first thing you'll notice right away is that the current world record starts on 4 different games. So why is this?
Right, because we can't manipulate the stats of Squirtle very effectively, because doing RNG manipulations to guarantee catching unique Pokemon involves resetting the console, holding button through the intro, and then like walking around grass until you get an encounter. Now you can't walk around grass to get an encounter. You have to go through text boxes to get Squirtle, and you have much less precision into text boxes than you do walking around grass. So the Squirtle starting out runs has to be unmanipulated in its stats. However, it's still guaranteed. There's no extra catch you have to do. So speedrunners don't lose out in that sense of needing to do any more encounters than they possibly should.
You'd think that the starter Pokemon would be manipulated to have perfect stats, but there are several reasons why this isn't the case. Doing a manip requires a save and quit, which costs 40 seconds out of the gate, and second, there are 9 text boxes to clear, each with a 4-frame window for success, along with a frame-perfect input for the nickname. Due to this difficulty, and the fact that a Squirtle manip would only save a minute or 2 over getting a great Squirtle, it isn't a necessity for this section to be manipulated. So what other things aren't manipulated in the Catch-em-all route? The run currently has no extended manips, as the odds of finding an RNG seed with the values you need is extremely low when trying to chain catchable Pokemon.
Elsewhere in this Abyssoft video, we talk about how not only can we manipulate getting a specific encounter, but that we can chain that into manipulating not getting any encounters for extended periods of time. Also, getting a Pidgey encounter exactly when we want to, and then after that, and further not getting encounters, we get a specific start of battle outcome. Now, we can't chain multiple battle outcomes in RNG manipulation in Pokemon Gen 1. We can only chain together very brief sections of encounters like this. So the extended manipulations are very, very complicated and only done for that one situation where it becomes vaguely possible to do at the beginning of Pokemon Red, glitchless speedrunning for any percent, not catch 'em all. But in this catch 'em all run, there's no extended manips at all because there's simply no reasonable way to create charts for extending all the different variations of you catch this one Pokemon and then have its nickname. Oh, I nicknamed it 2 frames too late, so I have to use this chart. With doing that 50 times, would get way too complicated. So there's no extended manipulation in catch 'em all glitchless. There's just regular save and quit manipulation.
Pokemon together. Here's an example to help illustrate this difficulty. Let's say there are a series of Pokemon you want to catch: Magmar, Muck, and Coughing. In order to manipulate all of them in one go, you need to find a seed that spawns one of them and let you catch it first try, which then leads into another encounter.
Oh, Abyssoft, oh no. I found a missing letter in the word where.
With a first try catch. As the manip gets longer, the frames that have the possible RNG get more restricted, especially with clearing text, as this adds some opportunity for missed inputs. It's not impossible that these manips could be worked out, and they are likely the next big time saves to be implemented into the run. For now, runners save and reset to manipulate each Pokemon individually, and since there
Exactly, so we can save and quit and restart and hold certain buttons through the intro and guarantee catching every catch of every Pokemon we need for catching all possible Pokemon in a single game of Pokemon Blue. So realistically, it just simplifying their model and assuming you need to catch every individual Pokemon, the answer is not 750. It's not even the 450 that you would get from desumming every Pokemon. It's 150. You can just instantly catch all of them.
Isn't time to look at every Pokemon in the run? Let's look at the most frustrating place for random encounters in a casual playthrough, the Safari Zone. In normal gameplay, the battle mechanic for the Safari Zone is taken out, and instead, you interact with the Pokemon as a trainer, with the ability to throw bait and rocks to influence your catch rate. We won't get into the math for the catch rate and how it's affected by these options, as the runners don't bother with it either. Instead, they use manipulations to catch every Pokemon turn 1 YOLO Ball. Given that Chansey, Tauros, Pinsir, and Kangaskhan have some of the lowest encounter rates in the Safari Zone, it's much more convenient to manipulate these encounters instead of trying to find them normally, and then risk them running away. A series of save and resets allows runners to buffer inputs to trigger these encounters and catch them on the first turn with a 100% success rate. To get an idea of how much time this saves, in Shenanigan's current world record, he spent 12 minutes getting all of the Pokemon in the Safari Zone, compared to Caleb Hart 42's recent unmanipulated run, where he spent 39 minutes farming the encounters. That just scratches the surface of what is possible for humans in a Pokemon run.
Hey, it me. Yes, so this idea of manipulating even the Safari Zone encounters to guarantee catches, it also means that the simplification Numberphile did of just assuming that every encounter you get is an instant catch is actually completely valid, because you can actually do that. You can just guarantee that you catch every encounter that you find. And then what Abyssoft goes into here, in tasks, not only do we have the ability to do RNG manipulation with save and quit, TAS takes that out of the equation and can then RNG manipulate chains of encounters indefinitely. It can do things like stutter stepping for exact periods of time. It doesn't need to do buffers of input to make sure they happen on the same frame every time. It can just do whatever it wants, and because it's TAS, it's been built in an emulator where we can watch the outcomes and then rewind them until we find exactly what we need. So the tasks that I've built have essentially what looks like the triple extended manip, where you get Nidoran and then catch a Pidgey and then walk through the grass and don't get any encounters in the forest, and then get a battle outcome, except that it continues chaining that through the entire run, because it can even manipulate the battle RNG and then continue on to manipulating every other RNG call. So let's just recap here again. So Numberphile put out a video about the population statistics of how many Pokemon you would need to catch them all. Realistically, and I don't understand why they don't say this in the video, they are just creating a proof of the coupon collector problem, which is cool. It's a great educational topic, but that's all it is. It's just a proof of the coupon collecting problem. And they state, as a result of their math, that they think it would take about 750 different catches to catch all of the different 150 unique Pokemon in Gen 1. Now, again, that is a great estimation. All of the estimation tools they are taking into account are valid, but realistically, they are missing the computer science aspects of pseudo-random number generation in Pokemon Gen 1, which means that the distribution of encounters is not random. You can use that to manipulate which encounters you get, and holding the same assumption that you could catch every Pokemon instantly with one Pokeball, you would actually only need to be able to encounter roughly half as many Pokemon, maybe 400 to 450 different Pokemon, to be able to see every unique and catch every unique Pokemon in Gen 1. But then further we watched and saw a bit following Abyssoft's video, using some of my footage, using other speedrunners' footage, that you can go even further than that, and you can actually use save and quit RNG manipulation to reset RNG to a unique state, a known state, and follow a sequence of inputs to always get the encounter you want exactly, which allows you to take that 450 down to just, again, holding their same assumption that you actually need to encounter every different Pokemon, which you don't, because you end up leveling up a lot of them. You end up buying some of them from the game corner. You end up getting others of them from various means, but maybe like level up evolutions, buying from the game corner, and such. So the Safari Zone is the other big one, of course. So all that being said, there's multiple levels of how their assumptions about Pokemon break down, and it's really not from a statistical level. It's just that the Pokemon does not have a good random number generator. And I've actually, in my own side projects, done some disassembly work building a patch of Pokemon Gen 1, specifically Pokemon Yellow, which I call Fort Knox Edition, which fixes the random number generator to actually be pseudo-random. And then it saves the pseudo-random state of the random number generator through saving and quitting, so that if you try to save and quit and reset it to a known state, that won't help you at all. And also, if you try to do save corruption by turning off the console mid-save, it detects that and also says you can't use the save file anymore. So my Fort Knox edition will actually encode detail exactly what is wrong with their random number generator and replace it with a proper pseudo random number generator. However, in the original one, you can take advantage of the random number generator and just catch every Pokemon exactly the way you want. So thank you guys so much for watching today. We'll get this over to YouTube, and we'll see. What I really want to see is if we can get again, if you can like and subscribe my videos, that's great. But really, I want to get Numberphile to do. I know Brady Heron runs the Numberphile ecosystem. I would love if he could do a Computerphile video talking about the computer science statistics of manipulating pseudo-random numbers that we do to essentially defeat this estimation in reality for speedrunning. So thank you guys so much for watching today. It's been great. See you next time.